What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. President-elect Ching-te has arrived in Palau. It is the final stop on his trip to shore up Taiwan's ties in the Pacific region. Rick Lau is traveling with the president and reports from Palau.
Taiwan President-elect Ching-te has just touched down here in Palau and he's been welcomed with an extremely enthusiastic welcome. This is the last stop on his tour of the Pacific. Palau is one of just 12 countries around the world that recognizes Taiwan as a nation, and China, which says Taiwan is part of sovereign territory, lashes out the international recognition of Taiwan like this, and pressures countries like Palau to strict allegiances to Beijing. Palau has been a very vocal supporter of Taiwan, often voicing support for the fellow island nation on the world stage. And it's been opened about pressure from China, how it's been weaponizing tourism, sending boats into its waters illegally, and saying Beijing was behind a massive cyber attack earlier this year. Home to just 20,000 people, Palau is looking to attract more tourists and move away from relying on Chinese tourists and Chinese investment. So while they're welcoming Lai here today, there's also hopes that this will bring some big investment from Taiwan. John Su and Rick Lau in Palau for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's presidential office has confirmed that President-elect Ching-te spoke with U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson via a video call. The presidential office said Lai and Johnson discussed strengthening security cooperation and ensuring peace in the Indo-Pacific region. The call took place during Lai's stopover in the U.S. territory of Guam. Lai also spoke with House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries and Republican Senate Armed Services Committee leader Roger Wicker. Taiwan's security chief is warning of increased military cooperation between China and Russia. National Security Bureau Director Tsai Ming-yen says continued patrols by the two countries near Japan and Taiwan are pushing the U.S.'s bottom line. His comments came following reports that China could launch large-scale military drills after Taiwan President-elect Ching-te returns from his overseas trip on Friday. Taiwan's military says it is monitoring Chinese activity. China has sanctioned 13 U.S. defense companies and their executives in retaliation for U.S. arms sales to Taiwan.
中方决定对美国军工企业及高级管理人员采取反制措施。美方执意以武助独，动摇不了我们反对台独、实现国家统一的坚定决心，只会将台湾推向兵凶战危的境地。
Beijing is targeting aerospace firms and drone makers such as Teledyne Brown Engineering, Brink Drones, and Shield AI. China's foreign ministry says the sanctions would take effect from Thursday. The U.S. announced a new $387 million arms sales to Taiwan on November 29th. China claims Taiwan as its own and says such sales undermine its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Prosecutors in South Korea have opened an investigation into President Yoon over his decision to declare martial law. Also under investigation are Interior Minister Lee Sang-min and former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, who has already stepped down over his role in the crisis. President Yoon declared martial law on Tuesday evening, citing threats from anti-state forces. The move failed after a few hours when lawmakers voted unanimously to overturn it. A vote on whether to impeach Yoon is expected on Saturday. The president's ruling People Power Party said Thursday it will unite against the opposition's motion to impeach. A group called the Hong Kong Parliament Electoral Organizing Committee has introduced a new plan to elect a parliament in exile to represent Hong Kongers. Cadence Karanta reports.
Putting forward an unusual plan to hand back democracy to Hong Kongers. Members of a group called the Hong Kong Parliament Electoral Organizing Committee are in Taipei to announce their intention to hold elections, aiming to form a parliament in exile to represent all Hong Kongers.
香港的主权是谁的？是香港人的啊，不是中共，也不是英国。所以现在呢，我们一定要站起来，香港人站起来，收回我们的主权。
The group plans to hold elections in March using a mobile app. Anyone born or who has lived in Hong Kong for 7 or more years will be able to vote, as will their children. Up for grabs, seats for 35 parliament members, who themselves don't need to be presently living in Hong Kong.
This is the first time they're releasing a declaration on their plans for a Hong Kong parliament,
And they're doing it here in Taiwan, in part because they say they admire this country's democratic system. The group says that Hong Kong should serve as a cautionary tale for Taiwan, which they warn could one day face the same fate. In the last few years, under Chinese rule, Hong Kong's freedoms have been curtailed and its people's rights diminished. Beijing has also expanded control over its political and judicial system, despite assurances that it wouldn't. Recently, dozens of Hong Kong's pro-democracy leaders were sentenced to prison. Many Taiwanese feel a solidarity with Hong Kong, with Robert Cao, one of the country's most successful businessmen, showing his support for these overseas Hong Kongers.
现在还想来侵略台湾的主权，那么我们一定要在台湾守住最后的民主自由的堡垒，这是我们每个人的责任。
According to the plan, elected parliament members' first responsibility will be to draft a constitution, then to hold a referendum on that constitution, all part of an effort that this group says will give Hong Kongers back their sovereignty. Howard Zhang and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
The issue of reproductive rights is back in the nation's legislature, with more than a dozen amendments being debated by lawmakers. And one issue in particular relating to surrogate mothers is causing a backlash. Joey Stern reports.
Taiwanese lawmakers have begun reviewing a set of 16 amendments to expand the country's Assisted Reproduction Act in what's set to be a win for single women and same-sex couples. They're currently banned here from accessing procedures like IVF, and single women are also banned from using their own frozen eggs until they marry a man. But there's another issue in these proposed amendments causing fierce debate: surrogacy.
女人不能租借，婴儿不能买卖，退回代孕法案。
Surrogacy is illegal in Taiwan, and dozens of women's rights activists came out in protest to keep it that way, warning lawmakers against exploiting women's bodies and commodifying babies by extending reproduction rights to surrogate mothers.
其实这个背后其实存在就是我们要有我们自己血缘的孩子。其实要打破的是这个，为什么我们一定要有自己血缘的孩子？爱不应该因为血缘而受到限制。
These protesters argue that surrogacy is not just renting a womb, but asking another woman to bear a host of unpredictable health risks. They also warn that it's likely to exploit economically disadvantaged women. Others maintain surrogacy is a viable option for those who want but cannot have children, especially as Taiwan grapples with one of the lowest fertility rates in the world. Ruling party lawmakers are pushing to prioritize single women and same-sex couples for assisted reproduction and want to consider surrogate mothers separately, which is what the Health Ministry has done in the draft amendments it's put forward for consideration. Opposition lawmakers, who hold a combined legislative majority, have accused the ruling Democratic Progressive Party of influencing the ministry.
你是卫福部部长还是民进党的应声虫？ 你这样失信于民，部长，你回答。
我们一直努力在收集各方面的。
With a population crisis looming, expanding assisted reproduction laws is considered vital by the government. But rights activists warn this cannot come at the expense of women. Devin Tai and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Delivery drivers are angry about plans to merge the country's two top food delivery apps. They say they've been left out of talks with the government and are worried it will form a monopoly that will hurt not just them, but restaurants and customers too. John Interest reports.
The sound of around 200 scooter horns honking at once rends the air outside the Fair Trade Commission. Inside, behind closed doors, officials are meeting with business reps to discuss the takeover of food delivery app Foodpanda's operations in Taiwan by rival Uber Eats. The takeover plan has been in place since May, but a decision on whether to let it go ahead is due by December 19th. And so delivery drivers, against the idea from the start, are here with their scooters to make a final pushback. They say even with the market split between them, the two apps have been able to maximize their profits at the expense of drivers, eateries, and consumers.
平台过往可以片面砍司机的薪水，片面提高店家的抽成， 甚至片面对消费者巧立名目，增加额外的费用。
And they say they worry a takeover would create a monopoly, under which drivers, eateries, and customers would lose even more. They aren't alone in their concerns. The Labor Ministry has also told the Commission it opposes a takeover. On the business side, there are huge profits to be made. Over the decade the two apps have been in Taiwan, the size of the market has surged. There was an 18-fold spike in credit card spending on delivery during the COVID years. And while that boom is over, even as of last year, credit card spending on delivery was still up, nearing $3 billion nationwide. As observers note, the industry is also not subject to any specific regulatory laws or jurisdiction from any government body.
机车快递这部分只有指导原则，那我们现在交通部为什么没有办法？
And protesters say until these kinds of regulations are in place, the Fair Trade Commission should reject any takeover. Though they're annoyed they've been excluded from talks on the matter, they have a petition to deliver to the Commission, which is keeping its cards close to its chest, promising a fair review of the takeover proposal.
公平交易委员会也一定会审慎严肃地考量这一个结合案对竞争的影响，然后依法，然后做出一个审慎的一个决定。
What it decides will be consequential in a country where food deliveries become a way of life, affecting millions of customers, hundreds of thousands of restaurants, and the 160,000 drivers nationwide who connect them. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thursday is United Nations World Soil Day, which aims to promote soil health and sustainable soil management. Taiwan relies heavily on its agriculture industry, but climate change and extreme weather are threatening the country's arable land and piling stress on farmers. Wesley Lewis has more.
What started out as a labor of love has become a family business. Ms. Yang has run this small farm just outside Taipei for nearly 4 decades. She, along with her husband, grow a variety of organic vegetables on a plot of land right in front of their home to sell to local customers and vendors. But this year has been tough. 3 powerful typhoons made landfall in Taiwan, more than any calendar year since 2008, which has put a strain on Ms. Yang's livelihood.
今年损失最惨重，种2批菜，差不多1、2个月接近采收，完全都没有收好，都坏掉。今年最惨。
But despite the losses and the extreme weather here, Ms. Yang is staying put. The high altitude, cooler temperatures, and volcanic mineral-rich soils provide the ideal conditions for Ms. Yang's crops. In fact, it's transformed the entire area into a farming community. At this specialized soil museum in Taiwan's premier university, researchers are tracking soil health across the country. And they're working to raise awareness about how global warming and unusual weather patterns are threatening the quality of Taiwan's soil.
高温就会导致呢土壤的一些性质受到影响。那降雨不规律的话，那就会淹水或者是过度的干旱，所以因此呢就会导致我们的农作物的收成受到影响。
As researchers keep an eye on Taiwan's soil health, Ms. Yang has rolled up her sleeves, busy replanting her typhoon-damaged fields for the 3rd time this season. Though there's little she can do to evade the destruction brought on by extreme weather and climate change, she says she's determined to bounce back from this year's setbacks, one tender sprout at a time. Chris Ma and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching today's What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we take you to the U.S. state of Iowa, where a baby Japanese macaque got her first look at and taste of snow. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.